Hello, nerds! This segment that you're about to watch actually comes from the live show. If you want to join in the conversation live, then the place to do that is youtube.com/generallynerdy. So I'm done rambling. Let's get to the clip, shall we?
Deeper conspiracy theory too. That's rough. That's honestly dumb. But that brings us into the review from Cosmic Book. Where the hell did it go? There it is. Nope. Well, that's what we're going to touch on after the fact. Where the hell did it go? I have it on here somewhere. I swear I do. There it is. Review of Volume 1, A Woke Dumpster Fire, according to Cosmic Book. I love the guys at Cosmic Book News, but I don't agree with them all the time. So, ending of Stranger Things is looking like Game of Thrones all over again, heading straight for disappointment. I think it's kind of the opposite. We'll get into that, but I really think that it's a little bit the opposite of Game of Thrones, whereas Game of Thrones started to fall apart because they were trying to align themselves with the ideology of the day. I think that Season 5 of Stranger Things is starting off stronger than Season 4 ever did because they're trying to align themselves with the way the culture is shifting again. So I think that's an incorrect statement. Netflix dropped the first 4 parts. Oh, by the way, spoilers if you care, because we're talking about the first 4 episodes of Season 5. I think I need to also go back here and do this because I did not do it. All right. Netflix dropped the first 4 parts of Volume 1 on Wednesday. I'll save you the trouble. Just watch the second half of Episode 4, and you'll get everything you need. Really, that's it. Review over. With most modern television, not all, but most, with most modern television, the way that they're doing it more as a movie, a very extended movie, in that we're getting a 10-hour movie effective, or 8-hour, because it'll be 4, 3, and 1, right? So 8-hour movie with some of the extended episodes maybe making it 10 hours. Anyway, modern television, we have these very short seasons, and effectively it's just one long movie, right? So that being said, there are still some episodes that, yeah, you could probably miss 1 or 2 in the middle of the action and understand the story just fine, but would you still enjoy the story? And I think there's a distinction to be drawn there, because you enjoy the journey a lot more than the destination. And that is what modern television is banking on, is that you're going to enjoy getting there. Whether or not there is the catharsis you want is another argument to be had, because that definitely is important as well, because, again, see Game of Thrones. But the getting there is also as important as the there. Because if you have a weak arc up to the action, you have a weak arc up to the important bits, then the important bits are less satisfying in and of themselves. But also, if you have this amazing build and then it fizzles out at the end, that's horribly unsatisfying. So the two factor into each other. So I very strongly don't agree with that. Maybe you could not have watched episode 2. Like, maybe episode 2 was a little disposable by comparison to 1 and 4, but I think you get a good, you get the catch up that you need in episode 1. You see the time difference, because we do have that time, the year or so that it's been since the last season, inside of the mythology of the show. It's been about a year since we were in the events of last season, even though it's been 2 years in the real world. 3 years, 2 years, whatever. So we get the updates on the characters. So episode 1 is important for that reason. Episode 2 kind of just furthers that. It starts a couple of the setups that you're going to need to finish the first volume, but they really start to drive those setups in, like they start to get their hooks into you in episode 3. you get a real quick introduction into a new tertiary character, which is a weird thing to do in this final season of a show that we know everybody's going to die. Well, a lot of people are going to die, theoretically. So it's weird that they introduce a new character, but it starts to make sense by the end of episode 3 and into episode 4. You're like, okay, I buy this new character is important, at least for this purpose. But again, episode 2 is where you're introduced to that character. You're introduced to this new idea of how Vecna is attacking more kids than just Will and Eleven. So that's kind of important, but again, they really start to hammer that home in episode 3, and then you're really buying into it by episode 4. So again, another reason why maybe episode 2 is skippable, but you still get character development, because that is the one thing that we're always complaining about when we get subpar movies that are driving narrative, or political narrative, over the actual narrative of the story. Is a lot of people, not all the people, but a lot of people who disagree with the what is becoming less and less the social narrative of the day. The people who largely disagree with that oftentimes will say, it's fine if you want to make these points, but do it while also telling a good story, while also doing these good things. And I won't have an issue with it. I've made that exact point a number of times about things that we talk about on the show. So to dismiss when they do those things completely subverts your own argument, because that is another argument that has been made a number of times on Cosmic Book. I think that the character development that we get in episode 2, while not in any sort of depth, is still important. We still see how these relationships have changed since we last saw these characters. It is an extension of episode 1. I think that's important. It's less important. It's less entertaining than episode 1. It's less entertaining, obviously, than episode 4, but it's still fairly important. So yeah, I think that's kind of a dumb. So the review goes on to say, everything you'll skip is a mixed bag of bad acting, useless filler dialogue, and, quote, woke moments that have no business being in a kid's 1980s adventure series. There are way too many characters, and it all plays like a giant mess. It is a little messy. I will grant that. It's definitely strong C+ overall until you get to episode 4, where it starts to really pick up. But comparing the Stranger Things, if Stranger Things is the bar, then I would say damn near 90% of other modern television shows do not pass that bar. They don't. If this is a C, if the first 3 episodes are a C, and then I would definitely give episode 4 a really hearty B. But if the first 3 episodes are a C, the rest of television anymore is failing poorly, just abysmally. So again, this is. I want to be the first person to shit on the thing. I think a little edgelordy, which happens sometimes on Cosmic Book, but it's also obvious Netflix forced them to stretch the episodes to squeeze out as many viewing minutes as possible, just like they did with Squid Game Season 2, which wasn't good either. I think that's a little justified. I don't think we needed an episode that was an hour and 40 minutes long in the first. I can see doing that for the final episode, maybe even the final 2 episodes, but I don't think any of these 4 episodes needed to be that long. There's some bloat in there that could have been shaved out. So that is a fair argument to be made. Forced politics and unnecessary scenes. One scene takes a shot at Republicans for absolutely no reason. A wealthy family sits at dinner. The doorbell rings. The mom tells her kid to be polite unless it's a Mormon. Mom then eye rolls, which she was likely directed to do, or a Democrat. Which is funny. That was legitimately funny. Go back and watch old Johnny Carson episodes. They're on Pluto. You can watch them for free. Go back and watch old Johnny Carson episodes back when it was far less likely to be a Democrat in Hollywood, It still wasn't unheard of. Like that's never been a thing, but it was more common to have conservatives. Carson was conservative. He made jokes regularly that were in line with something like this. So, yes, that absolutely fits in this universe and was legitimately funny. I laughed, and I'm both of those. Well, not Democrat, but I was raised LDS and am conservative. So I don't understand how that's a shot at Republicans. That's just ridiculous. Obviously, she's coded as Republican, fair, and the scene bends over backwards to mock the whole family. Then Lucas... It doesn't. It does not. It's not mocking the family. Lucas cracks a line about the daughter wanting fur coats. We know what this means. Is that some sort of allusion to, like, a lesbian affair? Like, I don't... That's a rich joke. That's not a Republican joke. Puppies for a fur coat. Like that is not a lesbian joke. That is animal cruelty joke. Like let's stop grasping at straws because the truth is enough. As Crowder says regularly, the truth is enough. It gets worse, according to this review. The forced LGBTQ insertions, not forced. They established that this character was gay. It feels like half the writers and producers self-inserted the LGBTQ elements, or because Netflix paid for DEI quotas, likely both. Robin should have been cut entirely. Every line she delivers is annoying and too much. She exists only to fulfill checkbox requirements. Robin's gay, the actress is gay, and the writers gave her a scene where she calls people rich white douchebags for no reason other than projecting their own views. A gay woman, or a gay... I guess technically she would be close to 20 at this point, so we can call her a woman, but still, we'll say teenager. A gay teenager in the 80s is going to have these opinions. Yes, I agree. Sometimes her dialogue is like, oi, like, why are we going for a comedic beat right now? But she's still fairly... I don't know. She might be less important than I want to give her credit for, just because I think that the actress is fairly dynamic and... like she fits, but that's just me. Let's hear the context. I'll turn down the music, I guess. Let's turn down the music. Because if we turn it off, then we might get flagged, but she does not say rich white douchebags. She says rich douchebags. She says white collar criminals. Oh my good lord, dude. That is so taken out of context. White collar criminals is different than calling these rich white douchebags. White collar criminals is a colloquialism that has existed for a long time. Like that is not so like, oh, again, this feels like edgelord. I'm going to be the first person to shit on this kind of behavior. This is not a review done in good faith. Then there's a bizarre I don't like dick exchange. That was hilarious. If you're looking for something to be offended by, then I guess that's something legitimately to be offended by because you're that opposed to homosexuality. But like, that was freaking hilarious. The entire moment exists solely so she can announce she's gay. No, it is what is called irony because she's not actually referring to penises. She's referring to something else. And it just lines up with the fact that she also happens to be gay. But not everybody in the scene knows that she's gay. And that's why it's funny. I thought it was only the left that didn't understand humor here, guys. Come on, what the hell? Apparently already knows, but though everyone apparently already... No, they don't. In the scene, there's at least one character, I think it's two characters, that don't know that she's gay, and that comes across as exceedingly funny. Oh, this scene was created for her too, obviously. No, that leads to Will. All right, so this is where I think I'm going to deviate even harder from this. I guess Noah Schnapp is gay in real life, so the kid who plays Will recently revealed that the woke media was hitting on him when he was 13 years old by asking him if he was gay. Bunch of weirdos. That's, not the first time we've heard such things about the media, right? Anyway, Will saw Robin, another girl kissing, the only kiss between any of the characters in all 4 episodes, and the only characters in a relationship, even though, no, that's not true either. But okay, even though the chances of that happening are only around 2%, that is legitimately fair. Obviously, we know what Will was thinking. Will and Robin have a heart-to-heart about what it feels like to be in love or whatever. This ties into the end, which is more garbage. This did feel a little bit forced. I will definitely cede the ground that while it was mildly implied previously that Will might be gay, it was not any sort of focus about any of the characters aside from Robin, because kind of obviously, which they play in a way that works. So what the hell? Who cares? But it is now much more heavily implied that Will is gay, and also much more heavily implied that Will has a crush on... I'm not going to remember the kid's name, the character's name, but his best friend, the one that's dating Elle, because that's a relationship. That's not the only. Robin is not the only one in a relationship. Elle and what's his name? We're going to read it here in a second, and I'm going to go, oh my God, I'm an idiot. But then also his sister and one of the two guys, even though the two guys are still competing for her, she's actively in a relationship with one of those two guys. So Will's big brother, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, continuing on. Oh, he's going to talk about that. All right, well, here we go. So the plot is pretty good. He definitely acknowledges that, because yes, it freaking is. They could have cut out a lot and probably made this a good 2-hour movie, not 4 overstretched and overdrawn out episodes. Again, I will definitely acknowledge there is some bloat. You could have made each of these a succinct 45 minutes and you'd have been good. Vecna is still alive, and now he's kidnapping young kids just as he did with Will years ago. Again, all you have to do is skip to the last half of episode 4. Nothing else matters. Not true, because that gets established in episode 3. We see that in episode 3. They start to come to the realization. Again, the journey is just as important as the destination, guys. Steve, Jonathan, Nancy. So Nancy's the sister. Steve is the kid with the hair, and Jonathan's Will's big brother. Nancy and Jonathan are dating. I'm 90% certain that is still a thing here. They don't acknowledge it explicitly, aside from his competition with Steve, but like it's still, as far as I know, that's still canon. So correct me if I'm wrong, please. The Steve Dustin stuff gets older even faster. Hopper 11 relationship is just as old. No, the hell it's not. I strongly disagree with this. Oh my God. All right, so Steve Dustin stuff gets old even faster. So Steve Dustin, the last time we left them, were buddy-buddy. They were like homies. And now they're at each other's throats. So there's some sort of conflict there that has happened over the course of the last year since we saw them that we need to delve into. So yes, I feel like they're beating us over the head with it a little bit, and they're not revealing the conflict because likely that's going to come out in the next set of episodes. But I don't think it gets old. I think it's highly confusing and unnecessarily so, but it's not old. Hopper 11 relationship they're claiming is just as old, is also not super fair, because Hopper was in a Russian prison for a good chunk of the last chunk of what we saw. Like, so he's trying to be a dad again, and like, how do you be a dad to somebody like 11? Like, that's just yeah. They're trying to keep Millie Bobby Brown like she's still 10 years old. She obviously isn't. No, they're not. They fully acknowledge that she is a growing young woman. By the end of episode 4, which again, that kind of factors into his point of just watch to the end of episode 4 and you'll get everything you need. By the end of episode 4, you see Hopper's fatherly nature kind of reveal the true intentions behind the way he's treating Eleven. He acknowledges that she's done well, that she did a good thing, that she's doing this amazing job. I think that shows freaking development. This is exactly what we complain about when we get nothing but woke garbage as our entertainment. And now that we're getting it in a way that works, we're still complaining about it because it's unnecessary. What the hell? Annoying real-world mistakes. Some other things that bugged me. The flag up on a mailbox means you have outgoing mail. It's used to tell the mailman to pick up the mail. It doesn't mean you've got mail. Once the mailman picks up the mail, he will lower it, signaling that I don't remember that, so it obviously didn't bug me enough. Or how about when they were jumping the cars? That bugged me too. So the Jeep driver should have revved the engine and kept it steady to charge the other. Oh, fair, but they're teenagers, so the revving part was not exactly like it. The car was on, so it's not like it's totally egregious. Also, turning the engine over and over before the battery is charged would have further drained the battery. That's true, and I think they kind of acknowledge that to a certain degree in that. Yeah, I noticed these things. I was having similar thoughts, but like, they learned the lesson in the scene, so I don't understand why he's got such an issue with it. And then the forced ending in season 2 callback. Or how about that ending? All right, this is huge spoiler. If you have not watched episode 4 of the first part of Stranger Things season 5, this is a major reveal. So once again, spoiler warning. But how about that ending? So you want to tell me they always planned from day one that Will was going to be gay, that the writers knew back when Schnapp was a little kid that this is how the story would end? BS. Doubt me. The woke media is already celebrating it. So Will being gay suddenly turns him into Neo? What the hell? I don't think that the two are related. I think that much the way Star Wars evolved as Lucas was creating it, I think that to a certain degree, Stranger Things has evolved in a similar fashion. I don't know that the explicit sexual nature of their characters was ever really planned aside from Robin. I think she obviously was an LGBTQ checkmark. She still pretty much works in the series, so that's fine. But I think that the allusions to Will's sexuality from the previous season, because I don't think they did it in season 3, but they definitely did it in season 4. And they definitely did not do it in seasons 1 or 2. But the allusions to Will's homosexuality, I think, are seeds that they planted that they kind of have to continue with. I think Will becoming Neo, as they put it, Will gaining these powers is more of a byproduct. And like I said, we're going to get there. So here we are. More of a byproduct of the current shift in culture. Because I'm pretty sure the way that they've been setting this up for so long is originally they were going to have 11 spar against Vecna. It was going to be a big battle between 11 and Vecna, and that was going to be the end of Vecna's. Once they finally got 11, there was going to be probably some sort of part where Vecna had her down, and it was like this big tense moment, and then one of the kids comes in, or all of the kids come in somehow into the scene, and they lend her their support, and through their powers combined, she is Captain Vecna Killer. So like that, I think, is what they were driving towards. Because to a certain degree, though I don't necessarily agree with this, to a certain degree, I think people are making an argument along the lines of 11 being a little bit of a Mary Sue, though there has been plenty of struggle for her to get to where she is. She was given these powers, and therefore, it's not fully earned somehow. I understand the Mary Sue argument. I don't understand it in this instance. But also with the focus being on her and with, again, woke culture starting to die off, I think they're getting ahead of the curve and they're splitting those powers between Eleven and Will. I think that they saw an opportunity to capitalize on the fact that they had a male character. I think that the fact that he may or may not actually be, because they still haven't said it explicitly, they're only heavily implying, but the fact that he may or may not be homosexual is definitely secondary to the fact that he is male and that he is going to also be key in the destruction of Vecna. I don't think that those two things are related. So I think the Will thing is a result of the most recent 2 years of development, and I think the gay thing, the Neo thing, is the most recent 2 years of development, and the gay thing is a seed that was planted in the development for season 4. So, and potentially even during season 3, but I don't remember it being a thing in season 3. The ending also drags back a character from the dreaded season 2, the season everyone hated. Not true. I hated the middle section of season 2, but I thought it started strong and ended fairly okay. I just thought that the middle bits were not so great. Anyway, even 11 ran off with that group of goth kids. Just garbage. I think she's LGBTQ as well. Oh yeah, they don't say it explicitly, but the sister comes back. She's number 8. And the friend of mine at work at the day job called it and was like, this is what I think. And I had already watched the episodes and I was like, oh my God, how did he figure that out? And I was like, oh, but I guess because he told me his evidence. I was like, oh yeah, that's fair. You just saw it before I did because I was too busy having fun with all of the killing or the fighting of the Demogorgons and all of that. Also, character design on the Demogorgons, character design in general for this season was freaking great. The Demogorgons got beefy. So did Vecna. Holy crap. But they do a decent job. It's a very difficult thing to do, but they do a decent job of making these 20-something kids look like they still might be in high school. They definitely do a better job with these guys than they have done in previous TV shows like, Saved by the Bell and whatnot, back when we were watching TV as kids, to make them look like they're age appropriate. So, continuing on with this, the end also drags back, blah, 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 blah. I think she's LGBTQ as well. I don't know that they ever explicitly say that, but it's kind of implied with the haircut and some of the things that were said in season 2, but whatever. None of it feels organic. It's all shoved into the plot, a big forced mess. I think that the inclusion of 8 is shoved in. That's fair. That is why I would only give episode 4 a B and not an A, because that felt really ham-fisted. Oh yeah, you hated this episode, well now it's relevant again. No, you really could have still had this character, this actor even, in this exact spot and still not done that episode in season 2, and it would have the exact same amount of impact. So no, that episode in season 2 was not important. Anyway, a few things that actually worked. All right, let's see if we agree here. So what I liked was the Vecna stuff. The little girl and Sadie Sink stuff was interesting as well. The little girl being Holly, the little sister of... Is that Will's little... No, that's not Will's little sister. It's what's her name? Oh, goodness. What is her name? I just said it. Nancy. Nancy's little sister. Nancy's little sister, Holly, who I kind of forgot existed, not going to lie. Also, she's played by a new actor in this season. So there's that. Sadie Sink stuff was interesting and revealing. They should have cut out or significantly cut down on Robin. Even though I think the character works, I think that's fair. Joyce and Jonathan... Yeah, I don't know how much of that I agree with, but I'm sure there's plenty. That's a good chunk of where the bloat is coming from, so sure. What they really should have done is just focused on the core group of kids, 11 and Hopper. That is true. That is what built this franchise from the core. That is exactly where all of the seasons should have focused. That's not exclusive to season 5 though. So there's that. Verdict: Volume 1 is bloated, forced, and full of pointless filler. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not agreeing with this. Vecna material is the only parts that worked, buried under an avalanche of bad writing, shoehorn politics, and characters who the shoehorn politics. You really have to be digging for it in order to find that. And I don't know how much of that was intentional. Show's lost its spark that made it special, and this is the direction for the finale. Stranger Things is ending with a whimper. 4 out of 10. Ugh, Matt, I don't agree, bud. I don't agree.
Thank you very much, nerds, for tuning in. If you want to level up your nerdy, geeky, pop culture knowledge, then don't forget to subscribe and do all of the things. Go check out the main channel, Generally Nerdy, for the larger portion. Again, you get all of the sections into one convenient video over on Generally Nerdy. The name of the show is The Week in Nerddom. Thank you for checking out this clip. We will see you next time. Before we go, though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.